Pocket, and this is Lasting Conversations. Today we're here via Zoom with the wonderful Pamela Gardner. Pamela is the CEO president and founder of BVS, Biotech Vendor Services. Hi, Pam.
Hi there. Thanks for having me, Heather.
Hi, it's so good to see you. Pam, you are a rainmaker, you are a connector, a transformational leader. Your art of women thriving in STEM and all things sciences and how to empower women and the men who stand behind them or with them is your passion. Tell us a little bit about what it is that you're doing. And we might as well go ahead and start for those who may not know what STEM is. Let's start right there. And there's STEM and there's STEAM.
Yes.
So let's just start right there real quick.
Yeah. No, thanks for asking. To make sure everybody knows what it is. STEM stands for science, technology, engineering, and math.
Great. And some would say STEAM, which is an A, which is adding art and the arts within the sciences. So tell us about your passion and what it is how you have bridged the corporate world. You had a time in the corporate world, the science world, and then life happens and it redirects and it has redirected you into something even greater.
Yeah, so I've been, I was actually 12 years in the tech industry, and now I've had my own business, BVS, putting on scientific events and bringing the community together to learn about the latest and greatest innovations out there. But back in 2018, I was really burning the candle at both ends in that crazy hamster wheel. I just kept spinning, and I remember walking up the street, and I was like, I just want to get on my vacation. I just want to get on my cruise. I need to kind of leave this world that I'm in. And my only solace was going to aerial yoga, which is a type of yoga that's acrobatic, and you actually have silk wraps. And that day, I was just so stressed out. And as we were meditating, I was so tired, I actually fell asleep during the meditation. And then I fell backwards.
Because you're hanging suspended in these wraps. You're basically in a giant swing, and so you fall asleep suspended in midair.
Well, I wasn't doing any fancy things or acrobatic. We were just holding on to the silk wraps,
right,
having a meditation, and you're not supposed to fall asleep.
Yeah.
But I dropped, because I fell asleep, I dropped the silk wraps and fell 4 feet backwards onto the back of my head. There was only like a small thin yoga mat, and everybody just jumped up and ran over because you heard the thud, and I didn't know what had happened to me. And it ended up being a very serious concussion.
Wow.
And, I kept trying to get back up and get going, and I couldn't get onto the computer. And I was very frustrated because, my cognitive intelligence was really what had been guiding me all of my life, and just being able to push. And all of a sudden I had to slow down. And it was actually my wake-up call to actually slow down. And I was forced to slow down because I couldn't be on the computer. I couldn't do the activities at the level that I normally could. And these concussion symptoms continued for 2 years. So I really had to find a different way to do my work, do my life. And it was at that moment when I had the time to actually not be in the busyness, I realized, I really want to help women excel in STEM, and also wanted to include men in the conversation. And during that time, and I had no idea how I was going to do it, I came up with a program called the Women Breaking the Barriers of Science and the Male Champions. And I came up with a program to address the sexual harassment, the biases, and the discrimination that was happening in the field. It was second to military on the number of sexual harassment abuses that were coming out.
Really? Within the medical field and the sciences field?
Yeah, wow. Yeah. So there was a 300-page report just as I was running this initiative. And like I said, I couldn't really be on the computer. And an assistant who used to work with me actually came and she said, you know what, I'll help you type. I'll help. I'll be your person that types for you and gets everything out.
Your fingers helper. Good.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, because I couldn't really be on the computer.
Mm-hmm.
And this was a time where, like, previously I was doing everything in isolation. I was doing everything on my own. But because of the head injury, I had to reach out to people. And because I was so excited about the passion behind women breaking the barriers of science and the male champions, it was like the universe bent over backwards to help me. People were like, how do I help you get speakers? How do I help you get sponsors? Every organization in science and tech supported it. I ended up being an NPR in magazines, and the newspapers, actually interviewed me. And I'd never seen anything like that. And I felt like my brain was functioning at maybe 60% of what it normally was. And I couldn't do the hours, yet I accomplished this big project and launched it in San Diego, San Francisco, as well as Boston.
Where we got to play together. I went to one of your events and you were a speaker there and just did this outstanding job. So one of the things that I'm hearing within your storyline is the notion of, isn't it time for a shift where women especially, but really all of us, no longer have to race and work harder to get ahead? And kind of all pun intended that you were bopped on the head to learn this lesson of, oh, look what the universe can bring me, and I can have helpers to really expand and thrive and help other people expand and thrive. And maybe I don't have to have that 80-hour work week or that constant and incessant worry of how am I going to get all this done. Did I get that right?
Yeah, that's absolutely the case. And it's like because a lot of us have that belief, I have to work really, really hard to get ahead. And these women are working crazy hours. They're thinking, if I work harder, if I show up more at work, I'm going to get that advancement pay and recognition I deserve. And it's actually the opposite. They're getting frustrated. They're not being as effective as they could be. And when they're tired, you can't be as confident, as visible as you could be. And really, what I say in life is, it's so fun and easy, to make money, or it's so fun and easy to get clients, and everything's happening with more grace and ease. And I can tell you, I was one of the most stressed out people, just constantly stressed. But when I had that shift in my mindset and I stopped doing things alone, which women often will like overgive, or they're afraid to ask for the help because they're viewed as being weak.
Mm-hmm.
It's actually when you collaborate with others that you can get so much more done and you can have peace. And when you take that time to actually stop and be silent and really let your creativity flow and come up with these ideas, you can be more in your passion versus just continuing to do all those to-do lists.
Right. Well, and within the science field, there's so much amazing book learning, which is in our head, but it also sounds like, okay, within the moment, to drop into our heart and listen to our body and take that pause. Almost every time on my podcast, we get to that space where it's time for the pause, and sometimes the redirect, and community. Community is the biggest thing. So that reaching out for help in all the ways that you were just describing. And one of the things that you were talking about in the groups that you do and the clients that you have, aside from just the biotech services and your vendor events, but having on that personal level, getting to the root of something, and what is their internal clock saying? Speak to us about that.
Yeah, because
it really gets to the root of the real work before we can take it into an office or a family.
Yeah, and often people think, well, it's the job that I'm at that's burning me out. Mm-hmm. If I leave this job, then the burnout's going to stop. And the reality is, high-powered, driven women are very prone to burnout because you're always wanting to get to that next level and to the next level. But the reality is, you have to learn how to do things more in the feminine, where you allow things to come to you. You're still taking inspired actions, but you're not beating the pavement to get ahead. And I think we've just been taught we've got to work really hard. And as you were mentioning before, I mean, people in tech and science and engineering are very, very analytical, and it's very hard to get them into the heart. So in all the programs that I do, I always have an exercise where we go out of our head into our heart with some breathing things. And, this New Yorker said to me, oh my God, thank you for doing this. I'm a New Yorker and I never have any peace. And so it's just teaching them in just a few moments, you can bring yourself to that peaceful place. And when you go into your heart, it's just a different way of doing things.
It really, really is, which I will kind of thread back into the A for the art, which really is creativity. And when we were talking yesterday about that, it doesn't necessarily have to mean artist or musician. It's an accountant. It is a lawyer. It is really anybody, but it's tapping into that creativity space, or that heart space, to make those allowances, and that's where inspiration comes in, and even knowledge. So the greatest mathematicians and the Einsteins, the Platos, everybody, it was in their silence. They didn't have TV. They didn't have any of that. But we engineered TV and we engineered rocket science because we have to let the inspiration drop in from a quieter space. And then the head can go mental and you go, blah, 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 blah. Here's all this math. Yay.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And if you look at, even Richard Branson just had an article, it's always be grateful for what you have. Start your morning with what you're grateful for, really what you want to visualize, where you're going. And that morning routine, which I also teach women how to do, is so important, because it sets the pace and the emotions for the day.
That's wonderful. So within this work that you've been doing, especially within the shift and in the context of really our communities at large, how are you seeing the science industry or the STEM and STEAM industry with your clients and with businesses morphing? Have you been seeing changes, especially having to do with harassment or what I'm liking to call, is there a business unusual where the very training doesn't have to be so brutal? You don't have to have the hazing aspect of, say, medical school. Have things changed over the course of time in your professional experience?
Yeah,
like a gentler, where it's more of from a smarter, working smarter, not harder, and not as cruel. And sleepless. The proverbial 36-hour shift that it was not healthy for anybody.
No, and it's interesting because really the tech industry as well as biotech, they're doing a lot of layoffs. And so there's more and more expectations of people taking on more and more things. The statistics say that 52% of people are burning out, and still a lot of people, especially women leaders, are thinking of leaving their jobs. So it's an external and internal approach. The leaders need to be aware of managing the burnout situation and giving people too many tasks. Women also need to be setting boundaries. And often they're like, hey, can you train Johnny, or can you take on this additional sales project? And they're not actually compensated, or it's not a part of what they're evaluated on, but they feel like they can't say no. And, by being able to say no, but I still feel like, companies are not doing enough to address the burnout. They are having, programs related to, diversity and inclusion. We've seen a lot more of that. But the other thing is say if you put a woman of color into a senior position, if you don't make sure that she's not experiencing the imposter syndrome or the internal inner critic, she's never going to be able to truly be visible in the boardroom or in that senior position. So that's why it's so, so important to do the internal work. And I think that's the part that's missing in corporate is doing the internal work. Yes, there's leadership courses, there's training and everything, but really, really um, doing the scientifically proven methods that gets to the root of why the women are burning out or why they don't feel confident enough to get to that next level and break through that inner glass ceiling.
So tell us a little bit more of imposter syndrome. What is that for those that may not fully understand? Because it's a term that I have heard of. I think there's probably some other terminology. Basically, it's fear and our sense of unworthy, even if we've come to our glass ceilings, um, perhaps without even recognizing that we're at a ceiling. But these are the interesting spaces where we might be holding ourselves back and saying yes too much, or just not fully expressing and being seen, like you were just describing. So tell us a little bit more about what can happen where we can, even at the highest level, or athletes, and it may or may not depend on our color of skin. I think sometimes we all have that hiccup space where we just feel I'm not good enough and I shouldn't be here in the first place. Why did they just hire me? Or why did this person just marry me? Or so, yeah, tell us more from your perspective on all that.
Yeah, so imposter syndrome is when you get to that certain level
Mm-hmm.
and that inner critic and that doubt comes up. It's like, do I really deserve to be here?
Mm-hmm.
Maybe I'm going to get fired. Maybe somebody's not going to take me seriously. So when you have that dialogue constantly going on in your head, which is something I do, is to help um, manage the language, manage what you're saying to yourself, and actually, people, the more successful and the more intelligent they actually are more prone to having imposter syndrome, which is very interesting. So, and I think it really comes from, and I experienced this myself, is like you constantly want to be validated. And maybe, for me, it was like I grew up in a family of 4 children, and I had to keep getting grades or awards, and that's how I got my attention. And so it followed me throughout my life. And you have to get to a point where it's like, I don't need that external validation. I am okay with who I am. But there's a lot of work that has to be done to work on the imposter syndrome.
That's great. That's great because we can all, um, I'm going to get to the fun part, because to pierce through, do the work, and then it becomes fun. It's that grace and ease that you were just talking about. So with that, where is it that you are finding your passions, and what is jazzing you up?
Um, Really, what's jazzing me up is I started. I'd been doing workshops, I had been doing events, but I realized, in order, you can't, just for the same reason that 80% of all New Year's resolutions fail by, I think it's the end of February.
By
It's
11 p.m. on the 1st of January.
yeah,
It's a
and
setup. It's a giant setup, people.
no, everybody thinks, oh, okay,
Yeah.
I'm going to lose the weight, I'm going to do this.
Yeah.
But as you know, and you and I both have taken many, many self-development courses and, work to work on ourselves, is you can't do it alone. If you do it on your own, you're going to keep saying, I wish I had lost the weight. I would wish I was in a different relationship, etc. It's when you invest in yourself
Mm-hmm.
and you know that you're worthy to invest in yourself that these changes start to happen. And so I'm really passionate about my 90-day program, which is a 12-week program. We meet once a week over Zoom, and it's called The Art of Women Thriving in STEM. And many of these women are already pretty successful in their career, but they've hit that glass ceiling. They either haven't gotten the advancement or pay or recognition that they deserve, or they're in a toxic work situation and they're afraid to leave because they don't think the grass is going to be greener on the other side. And so we do all of the work to really, get to the root of why this problem is happening. And they come in and they have this old story they've been telling. Oh, I can't find a good job, or, my boss, or this or that. And there's some story they've been telling themselves. But and how my program is different than therapy is we don't focus so much on the past. We know what the past is, we know what the issues are, but let's forward advance to the new North Star, to the new place, the new story that you want to go to. Like, what would your dream life look like? If you could wave a magic wand and you didn't have any fear, let's focus on where we want to go, not what didn't work. So we stop the language, we stop the toxicity. And I can tell you, because I always say that I've been the lab rat myself. I've used all of these tools on myself, and my life was very, very different. I'm in a really great relationship. Financially, I'm making a lot more money, even despite in 2020 my business crashing 75% because of events stopping in person, and just a lot more peace and joy in my life. And so it's possible for everyone else as well.
Well, that's amazing. That's really beautiful. And because I can imagine that the tape that immediately can run is, well, I can't possibly leave this job, even though it stinks, because, well, they're doing layoffs anyway. And, just, it's kind of a train wreck. But what you're just describing, or, the economy sucks, or the loops that some people can get stuck in, is exactly where you're breaking free, and you're that bridge of thought process and emotion to say, we can rewrite this, rewrite your own script, literally rewrite your own script.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And there was one girl that came into the program. This was 6 months ago. And she actually said, you know what, I was laid off unexpectedly at my job. I'm a terrible boss now. I'm sending out resumes. I'm not getting responses. It's all because of COVID, da, da, da. And I'm like, well, if you want to keep telling that story, it's really hard to get a job. You're not going to get a job. I said, so what do you want in your life? What is that dream job that you want to create? And she put down on paper, and she was one of the people that really, really focused on what she wanted. And it was 4 weeks into the course, she actually, from left field, got 2 people that asked to interview her, and she had a job the next week, and it was making $30,000 more. She had gotten a promotion, and prior to that, she just was like, I can't get a job. And it's happened many times where when they start doing the work and focusing on where they want to go versus what isn't working, it actually, it's surprisingly, they actually get their dream job. And it's all about changing the mindset. And it's not an anomaly. It's happened over and over and over again.
It really is so true. And it's, we all have our difficult time, and things can be painful or annoying. But that's different than kind of living in and promoting this casting a shadow, aka a bitch session. Everything sucks, and it's horrible. No, there is another option in everything that you've just described. Literally we're rewriting and saying, it doesn't have to be, for some people maybe, but I have to live there. I mean, there are fearful things, but I don't live in fear anymore, right? Fear, lack, and scarcity. We don't have to live there anymore.
Yeah, no, exactly. And you know what? And one of the things I learned from one of my teachers is that, as women, we say, I just need to talk to my girlfriend. I need to talk about like the situation that's happened to my boyfriend or my husband or whatever. Or you go back to your husband and say, oh my God, my day sucked. My boss wasn't very nice and whatever. And it's like you have to stop that conversation, because the more you talk about how bad things are, and I just want to vent to my girlfriends, it just becomes a fulfilling prophecy of what your life's going to be like. And when you stop talking about it and you focus on, oh my gosh, I'm in a great relationship and a great job, and my life is very different and I can change. And so many people think, oh, I'm 50 years old, I can't change. And it's not true.
It's not
you can
true.
change at any age.
That's right. That's right. And it's okay to proverbial let off steam. If there's been something frustrating, and then be in a supportive scenario where someone can listen and hear you and then help let it go. So we don't have
Uh-huh.
to be stuck by not saying, because that sometimes that lack of voice and that frustration, especially at work or wherever it is, you do need an outlet to process and to voice something, which is different than what you were saying. If someone is then stuck and repeat cycle, and every night I come home and my boss and the men and that, or my boyfriend this or my kids that, that's a different cycle than saying, wow,
Yeah.
here's a scenario. What do you all think about that? Is there a way I should refocus? What are some supportive, I need some support here, right?
Yeah, no, absolutely. And the other thing is just, and this takes practice,
Mm-hmm.
is learning how to actually sit with the emotions yourself that are coming up, because there's so many different things we can do to bypass. We don't want to feel angry. We don't want to feel sad. So let's throw ourselves into work, and others do shopping or alcohol or whatever, versus facing those emotions. And when you actually sit with your emotions, you know, and not judging them as good or bad, they actually are like, okay, I'm sad. Okay, and that's okay because that shall pass. Um, but you have to be aware of what state you're in, because if you're angry, you're going to attract more things that make you angry. If you're in a place of joy and gratitude, you're going to attract more things that um, are good, that are happening in your life. So we're really a reflection of our own state of being. Whatever is happening in our life is a reflection of our internal state.
It is very true. It's a hard nugget sometimes to realize, but really it is very true. And when, if we are recognizing, oh, this is not the best case scenario for me, I now, it's up to me to make a switch, even a mental switch or a conversational switch, or leaving a job or leaving a marriage or selling a house and just trying something different that can break those cycles if we find ourselves in a cycle. Because then what else is new? So you had the moment of having an injury help do that. All of us had the 2020 helped us reformulate and shift into something completely different. But who is still stuck there where, oh my God, all this horrible thing happened, and who has blossomed and who has been doing the work and reaching out to be creative in different ways to just keep moving forward.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And you bring up a really great point, is the pandemic has resulted in so many people, kids, adults, experiencing anxiety and
Mm-hmm.
depression
Right.
and burnout. And people need the tools, to get out of it and to get it to a different place. And sometimes you can get stuck in that anxiety and that overwhelm, and it's very difficult to get out of that alone. And so having that tools to really focus on where you want to go. And I've seen people with extreme anxiety with the right tools, get to a much better place where
Mm-hmm.
they're out of that overwhelm. Because I myself used to experience a lot of anxiety, especially after my head injury, because my nervous system was really hyped up, always afraid of getting hurt again because I kept re-injuring myself. And so, and the other thing that's really important is like, if we're having a health problem or a challenge, is we want to stop talking about it. It's like, instead of saying, oh my gosh, my head, I'm off, this and that. It's like, what I would say is, I'm getting better and better every day.
Mm-hmm.
I'm healthy and I have energy. I'm excited to start my day, which is very different. It's like, my head injury. And I was hyper focused because I'm a high performer. And when you're off mentally, that was my thing. And my coach said to me is, you got to stop talking about, like, hey, mentally, like, the more you talk about it, the worse it's going to be. And eventually then I found a solution, which was an alternative solution, which was going to a kinesiologist. And he said, you're not injured anymore, but your body thinks it is, and he reversed it. And I had tried everything. So at the point when you're in acceptance that this is how I am, you end up finding a solution. And I fully recovered.
You know, you really brought up an amazing point. Your body was fine, but we
Yeah.
forgot, right? And I'm saying we because I've had those moments. I think we all can do that, that we forget, oh, look, this arm isn't broken anymore. Oh, look, I'm not brain injured anymore. But we're so stuck in being used to, you know, some of us will walk in a funny way because that's what our body had to do for a little bit. And so it is that retraining of even just forgetting, or it's not forgetting, I'm having my own brain fart, but it's moving forward of going, oh, hold
Mm-hmm.
on, that was just a habit. You know, we know
Yeah.
Dr. Joe, who is really famous for helping people break those barriers and boundaries of breaking the habit of being ourself. Oh, I'm so used to thinking this way. Oh, I don't have to think that way anymore. I don't have to physically be this way because I'm perfectly fine. Including a
Mm-hmm.
diagnosis, we can reformulate that as well and do what we have to do every day. But like you said, start with, well, I'm awake, I'm breathing, and you know, even in the most dire of circumstances, there are silver linings. There are moments of joy within the hardest of scenarios. But I appreciate what you were just saying of, oh, well, look, I'm actually physically healthy. Now let me just remember how to thrive and not think I'm sick anymore.
Yeah, exactly. Because sometimes you just get stuck in that, and as you said, Dr. Joe Dispenza, like he snaps people out because in their body they think they're still sick, and
Right,
then mentally, when they rise to that other level, they recover.
right.
And that was really what happened. Is the kinesiologist did the work around my subconscious that said, okay, you're not really hurt anymore.
That's extraordinary. And maybe touch a little bit deeper on that, because this is where perhaps meditation or a really, really good, you're talking about community and having support, having a different perspective that someone can also hold us accountable to point out, you realize you're fine. You realize you're fine. Let me help you reformulate and give you these tools that you were suggesting before.
Yeah, no, yeah, absolutely. And I always look at everything that's happened in my life. It happened to make me stronger. And when you're in the thick of it, it may seem difficult,
Mm-hmm.
but really how I got out of the head injury was to stop talking about it, to really focus on feeling the emotions that were coming up around the head injury, as well as learning how to get additional help and to not do things in isolation, really focus on my passion and what was important in life. And really, like I said, to get rid of anything toxic in my life. And now it's like the people that I only work with clients that I love. My friends are amazing. Growing up, I dealt with a lot of bullying and women that weren't so nice to me. And, it continued into my, throughout my 20s. Somebody asked me, like, why do you want to help women so much?
Mm-hmm.
And I was like, oh, I just really like helping people and da da da. And then I thought about it for a moment and like my heart sank. And I realized it was because I didn't always have a voice. I had to conform. I had to be like everybody else, get the jeans and the sneakers, even if my parents couldn't afford it. And I would work really hard. And I remember going in and buying those short ass jeans just so I fit in. And now it's like I want to be my own authentic self. I call myself a badass butterfly where I'm unique. I'll wear butterflies on my dress and I don't want to look like everybody else. But really, why I'm doing this work is I really want women to have a voice and to get the pay, recognition, and advancement they deserve, and just to really know that they are enough. They are worthy of everything they deeply desire.
And are you finding that with women, and I'm going to say family, we'll get to the men who support them also, or are supportive, is the legacy for their daughters and their sons to show them a better way as well, or a different way? Are you finding that
Yeah,
with your
no,
clients and within the there's a professional and then there's the family construct? And it all kind of seems to blend together in that grace and ease that you're talking about.
Absolutely. And you want to create those changes inside yourself. And when you make those changes, things start to change with your family, with your relationship, even like with my ex-husband, when we were in the heart of our marriage where it got very difficult and it was a power struggle, I walked away and said, how did I play into this relationship? And where did I contribute? And at that point, it was like I made the changes, and we're in a very, very, like many people say, oh my gosh, I can't believe how well you get along with your ex-husband. And we're really good friends because I did the work on myself. My husband didn't do, he's not into self-development or spirituality, but I was the one who changed. Things around members of my family that I had difficulty with. Very, very good place. And as I said, used to attract a lot of toxicity into my life and relationships and who I was working with. And I feel like my life is kind of drama free. There isn't that chaos and the drama, and it's very peaceful. And I have exciting things that are happening, but it's not like the things that are blowing up like it was before.
Well, so maybe we can round out to that because it's so exciting, the work that you're doing, and you get to travel, you're going to different workshops and you're hosting things. All the while, does it feel like you're coming to a different space where it's not literally eating up 80, 100 hours a week? It's not that grind. You don't have to grind anymore or side hustle anymore. All of that verbiage and thought system doesn't even have to be because you're expanding and growing and you have a day off or your time with your daughter.
Exactly, and that's what you choose. And with the event side of the business, it's happening with grace and ease, and the revenues coming through. And then, so I really have two sides: the scientific events, and then the women empowerment programs. But I know that the women are getting such amazing results, and I get so excited when I see somebody come in and they were in a place of disbelief and even considering leaving the industry. And then they get into their dream jobs, or somebody thinks that they can't get to the VP level. And after doing the work, they become a VP, or all of a sudden, their relationships start to improve. And there was so much stress in the family. And a lot of women aren't spending enough time with their kids or their partners, which is why, in general, divorce is so high. There's not that focus. And they're just having more peace and joy with their kids and their partners. And that's what's nice to see. And, other people just as a byproduct are ending up losing a lot of weight because they've let go of all the baggage that they've been carrying. So they don't come in with the intention of losing weight, but it's like once they get into a happy place where they're in a great job or their relationships improved, then the weight naturally starts to fall off.
That's beautiful. So you're just dropping all the baggage and the rest just drops away.
Mm-hmm.
That's so fantastic. Pam, where can we find you? What else do you have going on? You are a beautifully busy butterfly, badass butterfly. So tell us where we can find you and how we can help it. And when I say help, what I mean is continue the conversation, continuing the work, and being part of what it is that you're doing.
Yeah, and thank you so much. So once again, I'm Pamela Gardner, and my email address is pam.gardner, GARDNER, at B as in boy, V as in Victor, S as in Sam, connection.com. And if anybody wants to schedule a breakthrough call to discuss what their biggest issue is with their career, what is the gap that's preventing them from getting to the next level, and then come up with a plan to how to best move forward to get momentum, they can reach me at Calendly, which is CALENDLY.com /Pam dash Gardner, Gardner, and then / book to book that breakthrough call with me. And I'm really excited to connect with anybody, even if you're not in science or tech. Women in general are having these same issues across the board with that inner critic, that glass ceiling, the imposter syndrome, not necessarily making the pay or at the level that they want to be at. And we can get to the root of why that's happening and get you to the other side, to a place of more peace and joy, and where you're really flourishing in your career and your relationships.
Pam Gardner, thank you so much. This has been a joy to be visiting with you, and everybody, thank you for listening. This is Lasting Conversations. We get to the heart of everything, and we get to the heart of everything, and we have fun and joy with people like Pam Gardner. Thank you.
Thank you so much for having me. It was a pleasure.
It's always fun. Thanks.
Recording stopped.